new teachers. A happy ending is nothing more than a new beginning. Besides, one should never break up a winning team. Yeah! Hey, yeah, you like it?
Ninja Storm is very much akin to Lightspeed in that it's a very decent series, but a lot is holding it back. When it's good, it's really good, but when it's bad, it is painful. The stock music didn't help, but like the synthesizer music, it's something you got used to. And what really hurts this season, like Lightspeed, is the villains. Except where their villains were boring, this time the villains just suck. Lothor is a terrible villain. He's basically a male divatox. His plans are moronic, he's easily distracted, and he never inspires fear when you look at him, but laughter. It's okay to have a comedic villain as a sidekick, but this is a villain that's supposed to be trying to take over the world. Someone we have to seriously believe is a threat to the Rangers. However, his demeanor never makes me think of him as someone to be fearful of. He comes off more like a frustrated guy having to babysit his teenage nieces than a world conqueror. And would you get that stupid thing off your face? You look like a luchador who used the wrong material for his mask. Having a comedic main villain is okay sometimes, but when the main characters are supposed to be afraid of him, it just creates a weird paradox that makes him look completely incompetent. Think back to Lord Zed. He had his moments of humor, but his eye was always on the ball of conquest, and the humor was more derived from his rage and incompetence. A lot of the time, Lothor seems perfectly content without owning the planet. Really, why does he even want to conquer the world?
You don't want to take over the universe, do you? No. You wouldn't know what to do with it, beyond shout at it.
For crying out loud, in one episode he gets upset that he doesn't get invited to an environmental conference. What the hell does he care about an environmental conference that even the news admits only has representatives from its own city that's only concerned about the environment in its own city? And yes, I know originally in the script it was a peace conference, but that still doesn't make any sense. Not even in the final episode did I ever see Lothor as a threat to the world. You can claim his plan all along was based on the scroll, but if that was the case, why did he even care whenever he failed? Zergain would have made a much better main villain. He was serious-minded, always devoted to the job, and his plans were the ones that tended to come closer to success than any of the others. I felt bad for the guy, since he was the only one who was actually trying to do the job correctly, yet he's held back by the incompetence of his peers. Another thing that bugs me about the villains this season is simply the visual aesthetic. If you consider previous bad guys, they tended to have consistent color schemes and looks with detailing only when necessary. For example, Lord Zed is basically two colors, red and silver. Rancic and Astronema have a black and silver color scheme, Astronema's hair notwithstanding. But Lothor, his generals, the interior of his ship, even the monsters have far too many colors and little details everywhere. It's like having a sleek black car, but then shoving about 100 different stickers on it with no rhyme or reason with the placement. It's ugly and not interesting to look at. This season, though, does have its strong points. Thematically, there's an undercurrent of family for most of the characters. Cam is consistently worried about his father and the state he's in as a guinea pig, who in turn is a devoted father who wants to protect his son from the potential problems of being a ranger. Blake and Hunter are brothers who are motivated by the loss of their own parents, and ultimately Hunter is rescued from evil through their connection. Even Lothor, despite his actions in the last episode, seems to have a soft spot for his nieces, letting them get away with far more than I would if I was in his position. Speaking of family, let's talk about Shane. He has trouble working on a team, both early on as well as with Hunter when he joins up. He's probably the most serious member of the team, but we learn in a filler episode why that is. While one might assume he's only interested in his skateboarding, we learn that his family puts enormous pressure on him to take his life seriously, to work on getting a job and worry about his future and the responsibilities he needs to be embracing. What people don't realize is that he does know what's important, both for his future and where he is now. It's just when one has the fate of the world on your shoulder, you need to find ways of keeping your sanity in check, like through a sport. His older brother, a businessman, discovers his double life as a ranger, and instead of being a jerk or something about it, like some TV shows would, he instantly understands and wants to help him. I don't know why I like that so much, but I do. Blake, I have to say, is not given much to do. Aside from just his motivation and whatnot, it seemed like the biggest factor of his character was his budding relationship with Tori. Nothing seemed to come of it, but clearly there was an attraction between the two, though, like I said, the character was just average. Hunter is a little more standoffish than his brother and needed more time to be social, though he assumed the same level of blandness eventually. However, there is a gradual development that we see, where when he's first introduced, he's kind of rude.
My name's Dustin. I haven't seen you guys out here before. Where's the home track?
We come down from...
You wouldn't have heard of it.
Hey, bro. And he wonders why we don't have any friends.
Yet later, there's a specific thing that he refers to his fellow Rangers as when he's freed from Lothor's control.
Yeah, my friends.
Dustin has a very trusting nature, which gets him in trouble more than once. He's instantly friendly with people, but as a result doesn't think too far ahead about the consequences of his actions. It leads to him being a little vain at times, but in the end his heart is in the right place. There was a subplot I didn't mention in the main recap about how Dustin was kind of getting into a relationship with one of Lothor's nieces, but I didn't think it was going anywhere because she admitted to lying about the whole thing in the episode it was initially featured, but it was brought up again later, particularly at the end. Tori is probably the most competent fighter and most well-rounded person, but like the Thunder Rangers, it makes for someone who feels very generic and without personality quirks. She does get a very interesting episode later in the series, though, where she's transported into a parallel universe where the Rangers are evil and Lothor and his generals are the good guys, and she gladly stands and fights against them, despite her inability to morph. We did get to see early on that Cam had martial arts training, plus his resentment over not being a ranger and feeling like he lacks respect makes him a bit more complex. He reminds me a lot of Billy during Zeo, a tech geek who could do so much more for the team, but lacks the power to make it happen. I have to say, I found him to be my favorite character, despite how rude he started off as. His desire to help the team was selfless, and his quest to find the samurai powers, at least the first 2.5 parts of it, were the best of the season, especially when you see him meeting the younger version of his mother. The sensei is one of the weirdest and dumbest mentors ever. The problem is that if you don't actually have anything wise to write into the script, then don't try to play it up as wisdom, because otherwise you get really, really dumb lines like these.
Sensei, I've come to a conclusion. I'm lost.
Remember, Tori, a conclusion is simply the place where you got tired of thinking. One who is lost in thought is still lost some, but using your range of powers in everyday situations can have serious consequences.
The best part about that example is he's referring to when Dustin stops professionally hired goons from trashing a store, i.e. committing a crime. Are vandals an everyday situation in the sensei's mind? This season tries to play things a bit more tongue-in-cheek than previous seasons, and I'm sorry, to some people that's great, but as I said before, this is a biased perspective, and I'm giving my own opinions here, and I don't like the comedic focus. Don't get me wrong, part of the appeal of Power Rangers is the cheesiness of it, and I do like self-referential lines on occasion. However, most of the jokes aren't funny, and I fear that this is the season where we really started playing up bad puns and bad jokes from the Rangers during fights. They just distract from the action. Lothor's antics can get pretty intolerable, especially when he's supposed to be this big, bad alien conqueror. What happened to him in the depths of space that made him this way? When Cam visited the past, Keo was serious and pretty damn cool. However, somehow while he was exiled, he turned into what I think many people think of when they think a comedic Lord Zed. Overall, Ninja Storm is flawed. Like I said, there are a lot of things to like about it, and several episodes I do recommend, like the Samurai's Journey, but I don't think it was a good first outing for Disney's management of the show. However, there is a light in the distance for Disney's next season, Power Rangers Dino Thunder.